Welcome to Alignment First, where we're on a mission to bring leaders back to their peace, presence, and power. And I get the opportunity to download with Madeline Davis Tully, founder of MDT Leadership, national championship as an athlete and a coach at Princeton, Stanford, and give me the third one.
Ohio State and
Ohio
Boston
State.
University.
Give me the last one.
Well, I coached at Boston University.
Boston. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So champion at pretty much all levels in crew, rock star, now leadership coach. I appreciate you making the time. We connected at the post summit. Shout out to Christian Ponder and everything that he's building. Just putting a bunch of leaders built by sport in the same room and watching magic happen. It's a really incredible thing. We just actually hosted the Phoenix Contingent Happy Hour this past week. And man, it is such a service forward community of athletes turned executive and entrepreneur, and that are crushing it both in sport and in the business world. It's super dope. And I had the amazing opportunity to meet people like you. So I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael. I appreciate being here. And I couldn't agree more about that, being a part of that group and getting to meet you and a lot of awesome people. I think you're right. Like service forward. We all just want to have more teammates again. And I think this is a group of people who know how to be good teammates. And sometimes that's propping up others and doing your own thing. And so it's awesome to be a part of.
100%. So I want, from coach to coach, I'm super curious about your transition to from coaching sport to coaching leadership in the corporate sector. What's it like for you to go from coach to coach?
Yeah, the setting could not be more different. I get to sit here in the corner of my guest room at an hour of my choosing and do great work. I don't have to do it at 6 o'clock in the morning in March on the Charles River in the freezing cold. And so I'm grateful for that. The setting couldn't be more different, but I mean, truly the content and the work that we're doing and the kinds of challenges and opportunities and strengths and fears of the people that I work with are so similar as when I was working with college athletes. And I think that's a big reason of why I got into this kind of coaching is because when I left coaching rowing and I knew it was going to be really hard to ever find another job that had the same level of fulfillment and sense of purpose that I had in that work. Like every day I got up and I knew what I was doing and why and how to do it. And I knew that I was helping these young women become better versions of themselves. And sometimes that was, pulling a PR on their 2K. And a lot of times that was learning how to navigate life on their own, out of their house for the first time, how to become a leader on the team and find their voice, to watch somebody go from a quiet little freshman to like a senior badass leader. And I loved that piece of it. And I knew it'd be really hard to replace. And as I started getting into this kind of coaching, which just seemed like such a natural progression to me, I realized that I could do that in another venue and that the skills and the experiences were so similar. And also I think that the need for a coach, it's always there. It doesn't go away. I think as athletes, we're accustomed to the structure of playing your sport, being on your team, and you have a coach and you have your sport coach, you have your strength and conditioning coach. Maybe, if you're lucky enough, you've got a nutritionist, a sports psychologist, and your AT, right? And all this stuff. And you leave and it's like, well, I guess I'm a grown-up now, and we all still need coaches and would benefit from that. And so what I realized I could do was step in and help those people, especially that are coming from a background in sports, who have similar skills, learn how to take that to the next level and how to go to being, a leader at the next level of their organization, how to get the promotion or deal with the promotion when they get it. And also really like to look at the whole picture as I did as a sport coach, right? It wasn't just about who are you as a rower, but in the recruiting process or once you're on the team, like we're looking at what are you doing academically? How are you doing socially? How are you developing as a person? And this kind of coaching is the same thing. And I love being able to help people who want to excel in their careers, just like athletes do, and also excel as a parent, a partner, a friend, somebody who's training for a marathon or really invested in hobbies and doing things so they can create a life that they love. I get to just help them do that a little faster than they probably figure it out on their own.
Sure. So here's where my curiosity goes. For somebody that was a champion as an athlete, what's different when you go from competing for championships to creating champions?
Competing, when I think about myself as an athlete, I think I was much more selfish than I was as a coach.
Tell me more.
Yeah, to some degree you have to some degree, I could have been better. But, I think when you're the athlete, you're the one that's in the arena and doing the competing, trying to get into the varsity 8, trying to then make that boat win, or make whatever boat you're in win. You have to push yourself. You have to be really selfish about yourself and your time and your output and your energy and your work. And yes, you'd be a good teammate and lift others up. But, I felt like I was so focused on myself that I didn't always give the time and care to the whole team as I could have, right? I was most invested in the people right around me, the people in my crew, the people in my class. And as a coach, you really see that every person matters. You need everybody. You need everybody that's in the boat, but you also need, in rowing, when you go to the national championship for NCAAs, you bring 3 boats, 2 8s and a 4. You probably have just as many people, if not more, who don't even make the trip, right? You at home, you've got a third 8 and a second 4 and a third 4 and a novice 8, and you've got a ton of people who don't even make that trip. And as an athlete, it's easy to kind of lose track of the scope of that. As a coach, you understand we need everybody there and that your time is just as valuable to every person on that team and that you really need to make the time and the space to develop all of them and really be present as best you can for everybody. It's much more about the broad range, I think, of the coaching experience. Whereas an athlete, it was just like, I got to own my seat and my boat as best I can.
Yeah. Explain to me the mechanics of 8-4 both of how it works in rowing crew.
Yeah. So it's the US is a very sweep centric rowing country. So sweep rowing is with 1 oar. So you can do sweep rowing or sculling. Sweep rowing is 1 oar each, a port or a starboard oar. Sculling, you have 2 oars each. Sculling is smaller boats. So they're singles, doubles, and quads. I actually sculled in high school, which I loved. I rode the single and the double a lot in high school. I loved how self-sufficient you have to be in those small boats. You don't have a coxswain that's steering for you. If you're in a single, I mean, it's just like it sounds, it's just you. And so, if you lose, you know who to blame. And if you win, you know who did it. And then I actually sculled after college as well. I competed on the under 23 US national team in the lightweight double and coached those boats afterwards too. So there's sculling, and then sweep rowing is what the majority of rowing is here. It's the big boats. It's 8s, which are 8 rowers plus a coxswain. So there's actually 9 people in the boat.
Is that who you would see in the Olympics?
The Olympic has them all.
Okay. Got it.
So there's sculling in there. There's singles. There's everything.
Got it. Okay.
So sweep rowing is 8s, 4s, and pairs, but collegiate racing is primarily 8s and 4s.
Okay. Yep. And then are your teams rated lightweight, heavyweight, or how's that go?
So the teams are typically separate. So a school will have an open weight team and then a lightweight team. Okay. There are a lot fewer lightweight teams than there are open weight teams. It's just it's a smaller category, and it's actually not NCAA sponsored. So men's rowing and lightweight women's rowing are not NCAA sanctioned sports. So they have their own national championship. And then open weight women's rowing has an NCAA championship.
Got it. Got it. And is it what I would assume it would be in terms of the lightest boat tends to be the winner if all things are equal?
In lightweight rowing or in all rowing?
Yeah. So what's the difference between open weight versus lightweight?
Yeah. So lightweight rowing for women, you have to be under 130 pounds. Each rower has to be under 130 pounds.
Okay. Got it.
For men, it's 155-pound average. They actually average. And so, no, rowing is a sport that rewards length. So you want as long limbs as you can get and power. Yeah, it's all about levers. So you want like the longest arms and the longest, biggest levers you can get.
So the picture I'm drawing right now from my time at the academy, I started out at Air Force. Yeah. We had a lot of football players that got converted into rugby guys. And that makes all the sense in the world. But then there's also this dynamic that showed up in the cats that I served with in the Marines that were Naval Academy grads that were 6'5" and like, dude, you had to, I know you hooped somewhere. And they're like, no, actually I rowed.
Yep.
That's why. Oh, okay. So it sounds like there's a lot of hoop star converts that end up rowing crew.
Probably people who've failed out of basketball. I mean, I think few people, given their druthers, are going to be like, well, I could go to the NBA or I could go row. Rowing is a sport full of generally people who have tried other sports and were a weird size or too uncoordinated. Not a lot of hand-eye coordination going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a sport. Actually, I know a rower that went to the Naval Academy who was 6'5" and then went into subs. And we were like, no, why are we doing? You're too tall for this. You should be rowing, not in subs.
Yeah.
Lightweight rowing is essentially, it's a stand-in for height. I mean, really what we're trying to control for is if I'm 5'6", like I'm just fundamentally going to be at a pretty big disadvantage against a 6-foot tall woman who's rowing. Got it.
So how does the training go in your world? Because you have this really awesome blog of your row house that I saw, and the caption is success is boring. And as I know it to be, coming from the world of CrossFit and all that, and just the worst thing you could ever do in programming classes back when I owned a gym was program anything that was monostructural. Like if you put a 5K up there, because that's what the planet needed for being beat down from, a cycle of hard training, like it'd be crickets.
Yep.
So what is your 30,000 foot view sports specific training look like in the world of crew?
Volume. It's all volume. So it is truly boring. It is, I mean, a lot of rowing is just getting in the distance, getting in the volume, getting in the meters. I mean, it would be at a really competitive D1 collegiate program. I mean, you can expect that most days you're just going to go row steady, relatively steady for 90 minutes, 2 hours. You'll have some drill work in there, you'll stop and talk a little bit, but I think a very typical workout is like, a warm up and 3 by 20 minutes and then some drills and a cool down, or 4 by 20 minutes or longer. So it's a lot of getting in the reps. It's building the aerobic base. Like it's all about just having that super strong foundation and then starting to incorporate in threshold training and interval training and then some speed work as you get further along in the season. So, you typically, like a typical breakdown in a week, if you're thinking about like winter, early spring is the competitive season. You're looking at, if you're doing 6 days of training, 3 of those are probably just real long, steady. And then maybe a day of threshold and a day or 2 days of threshold and then a day of some shorter sprint work.
So how does one remain engaged if not for the love of sport
Yeah, it's
in that environment?
yeah, it takes work. It takes
Mhm.
work. Definitely, I think from the coach's perspective, uh,
Mhm.
we did try to find ways to mix it up and make it more engaging. It doesn't sound like a lot, but there's a big difference between saying you're just going to row 3 by 30 minutes straight through versus saying, okay, we're going to row it as maybe we do it by distance instead of time. So
Mhm.
we can incentivize a little bit of extra work, but not data zone, a little extra work, or we alternate stroke rates or, things like that to try to mix it up. We try to give them as much coaching as we can so that we have some really specific technical work that they're doing on there. So it's not just like go zone out, but it's actually some technical work.
Mhm.
And big picture, it's as often as you can, linking it back into the larger goal and
Yeah.
making sure that the team understands why what we're doing today is
Mhm.
going to support what it is that you want to do in May. Um,
Yeah.
and so really thinking about that, kind of that big picture goal and breaking it down into things that we can do right now this week, right? It's the classic process goals. It's
Mhm.
making sure that we're breaking things down into really doable chunks that like, yeah, I did my job
Yeah.
this week. I know I got closer because I did this.
Sure. And is there a direct apples to apples translation of training from an erg to the water?
No, if only. There's a
Okay.
classic saying in rowing is ergs don't float. So you can have a hammer on the erg, right? You can imagine
Mhm.
CrossFit, like someone
Oh,
gets on,
yeah.
just can hammer on it
Yeah.
and maybe has some great numbers, and then gets on the water. And if you don't have the technical skill and the finesse and the boat feel to back that up, it's not gonna work. So it's a proxy, but
Yeah.
selecting a boat, a lineup in a boat is as much art on the part of the coaches as it is science.
Sure. Yeah. So not just, the individual performance of the composition of the boat, but also where they sit.
Mhm.
Is there some alchemy there as well?
Alchemy is the right word. Yeah. So I think there's a tendency. I often hear a tendency in people from other sports to want to try to make it like positions, like
Yeah,
right,
100%.
like
Mhm.
this is your position in the boat, and it is not. It is so much more amorphous than that,
Mhm.
because you can stroke one boat, which is the person who's in the back, but the front, everybody's facing backwards. The
Right,
one
right,
who
right.
everybody's following,
Uh-huh.
and that person they're setting the rhythm, they're setting the stroke rate, they have to be very consistent but very aggressive, they have to be able to lift the rate when it's time to sprint, they have to be able to manage the boat. um Somebody like I may be the best stroke for this crew, but
Mhm.
the next year, or switch out half of that crew and I'm not the best stroke anymore, right? Now we need Michael and stroke because we need this. It depends on the crew. The crew might need a stroke who can, if they're young and they get worked up and you need a really cool, calm, collected stroke.
Mm.
If you've got a crew who's maybe a little bit more reserved, you need a stroke who's gonna freaking go, right? And so
Yeah.
sometimes you need to respond to the needs of the boat, and that's true all throughout. The middle of the boat tends to be the hammers.
Okay.
Even that can get mixed around. The person who sits behind stroke seat has to translate that rhythm back to everybody else,
Uh-huh.
but not try to stroke the boat themselves, which can be a problem.
Sure.
Bow pair needs to be really technically proficient. The boat's super
Mhm.
sensitive back there, so they need to be really, really sharp. So there is definitely, we always say it's not the 8 best rowers, it's the best 8 rowers that make an 8 ball.
So that brings me the perfect segue to my next question. How are you as a coach balancing that chemistry
Mhm.
without bruising egos?
It's tough.
Because
It's
that's not the same thing.
Mhm.
In football, like you can either catch or you can't. You're
Yep.
you've got the footwork or you don't. You like the contact or you don't. You've got the vision or you don't. These things are like objectively measurable.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is like managing talent at a level that almost makes your talent to the athlete, especially like, let's call it what it is. You're adolescent, so you're 25. The adolescent
They're kids.
athlete
Yeah.
who's like a developed child and saying, hey, the needs of the boat, not the needs of the athlete. Like what are those conversations like?
Yeah, it comes from, I think, going way back to before you're even selecting boats,
Mm-hmm.
is the way that you talk about the team and
Mm-hmm.
that everybody is there in service of the team and to help create the fastest boats and therefore the best performance that the whole program can produce. And
Mm-hmm.
just making it really clear from the get-go, like everybody's role here is to do the best thing that they can for the team, and that might not always be you being in the seat that you want to be in.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to say that in the fall and in the winter, and then you get to the spring and suddenly you're not in the boat, right? And that's really hard. And so as a coach, what I would try to do then is make things as objective as possible. The ideal is that you run a seat race, which is when you have two boats, you run a race piece, you switch two rowers, you run the race piece again. And then all things being equal, if, boat A loses the first piece and they win the second piece, we can say, okay, the rower that went in there is the faster rower.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of other factors that come into play there. But so as a coach, your goal is to make it as objective as you can.
Mm-hmm.
I always wanted everybody to know that I'm going to give everybody the best shot that I can.
Mm-hmm.
And that at some point I might have to make the call. And that is coming from my experience, my expertise, my years of doing this and seeing what's going to make the crew go fastest. I want it to be because I can go time trial that crew and know that it's the fastest. But if that's not the case, then I'm going to have to make the call, and you're going to have to trust my expertise.
Yeah.
And it's hard. And there's a lot of ego on the line, but just hopes and goals, right, that are on the line. And so as a coach, just trying to be as empathetic as you can to that. The thing I always wanted was that I wanted every athlete that I coached to know exactly what they needed to do to improve. If they weren't going to make the boat, I wanted them to know why and what
Mm-hmm.
they could do to improve and have a better shot the next time around.
Right.
Doesn't mean they're going to make it. Everybody else is going to get faster too. But I never wanted anybody to say, well, I didn't make it and I don't know why, and there's nothing I can do to fix it.
Yeah. As you describe the makeup of a team and where people are positioned in their seats and whatnot, what shows up for me, and we can kind of segue into leadership here. What's also showing up is this concept we use in the Marines called command and control.
Mm-hmm.
And you as a leader, it's important that you put yourself in the best position to observe the battlefield or the operation as it's going on. And sometimes you have to concede the ego or what you want to be doing for what is best for that operation. I.e., if you like to lead from the front, that's your natural leadership, quote unquote, style. But for the sake of successful accomplishment of said mission, you need to be in the middle or in the rear, right? You have to concede that in that inherent desire and put yourself in the best place to win and succeed. How much of what you did in rowing translates to the way that you teach and coach leadership?
Yeah. Everything. I think so much. Right. That's how I learned to be a leader.
Mm-hmm.
Was as a rower, as a competitor. I found myself in a lot of leadership positions
Mm-hmm.
throughout my athletic career. As the captain of each team that I was on. And I think I kind of kept getting put in those positions without, I would say, a lot of leadership training. I was captain of my high school team and captain of my college team, but nobody ever said like, here's how you be a captain.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, my dad was in the Marines, and as was my grandfather, and my other grandfather's in the Navy. So we had a lot of
Okay,
yeah,
all
a lot
right.
of this going around. And so, we would talk about leadership from that perspective for sure. But I think I felt like I gathered a lot of leadership training as I went along. And then it wasn't really until I was a coach that I really started to become a student of leadership and realizing that I was fortunate enough that I think it was something that was kind of just in me in a lot of ways, and that was recognized by others before I saw it in myself. And that as I got into a position where I was able to help others, to help my athletes learn how to be leaders, I realized, okay, well, it doesn't all look the same, right? This stuff now is obvious, but as a young coach, you're like, oh, it doesn't all look the same. Not everybody approaches. Some lead from the front, some naturally lead from the middle or the back, right? Some lead by example, all this. And so I started to really have to stretch myself to be able to identify and encourage that leadership in my athletes. And now, as a leadership coach, working with all different kinds of people, I think I really rely upon that expertise and in recognizing that leadership does take different forms, and that the best kind of leadership is the kind that is the most true to you. And it adapts to where you are, but it's the one that you feel like, yeah, it feels like yourself. You're not trying to be somebody that you're not. It's something that you can live. It's something you can live in. And I think those lessons are very rarely better learned or better won than in the field of competition and in sport. And that's why I feel so strongly about the importance of sport, and why I love working with athletes, because even though we're coming from very different backgrounds and very different sports, we all have that shared language. And so then it allows me as the coach to be able to pull back on those experiences and then pull them into the present day.
I'm curious. I want to go back to sport really quick, because there's that dynamic, as I've experienced your pedigree of champion performer. It's rare that individual also becomes a championship coach, from the perspective of there were so many things that Madeline did to make Madeline great, that are probably born of nature and nurture by virtue of the way you were brought up and all that kind of good stuff, and good fortunes to get sprinkled in there a little bit too.
Definitely.
And then there's like this, what's the word? Implicit expectation that everyone who aspires to what you've achieved should have those same intangibles. Right. And it's like, the Peyton Mannings and the Tom Brady's of the world, for everything that they've accomplished in football, to then impress those expectations on others, that they're, when the sun has set on their careers and they, God forbid, decide to go coach, with those expectations of like hours in the film room and like leaving everything else that is in football at the door, and, selling out to that existence. Was there a learning curve in terms of how you perceived yourself as an athlete versus what made you a great coach?
So I think, without sounding like I'm being unnecessarily self-deprecating, I don't think my background is as impressive as I think it sometimes sounds on the outside. I won a national championship in college, but I could give you 10 reasons why I feel like that wasn't a legit national championship, right?
Okay.
Like I was in our second boat. It wasn't our top boat. So I was in the second boat and we won the national championship. But to me, like, I honestly didn't really even think of it as winning a national championship, because I wasn't in the top boat. So it was like, oh, I guess I did. And I rode lightweight, not open weight. And I think that always left me with a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, because it's not as big of a population in college rowing. And so it was like, well, I won on a smaller scale. I didn't win NCAAs. Right. And so I think I really, as in a high school, I rowed on a really small team. We had a little bit of success, but not that much. I felt like I got beat around a lot in high school. I trained on a co-ed team in the summer. So I just had like the boys beating me up and down the river all summer. And so I think a lot of those experiences trained into me the importance of how to deal with failure and setback, and how that is part of the process. And even though you can have some wins along the way, that it is that like having, I raced lightweight. I am a lightweight, but I raced against open weight rowers in all throughout high school. So that was like constantly just like, give me a shot, get me in there, you know? And I do think that makes a big difference as a coach. You know, I don't think this is a unique experience. I think the best coaches I had were not the best athletes themselves, because they had to be scrappy and creative, and they had to learn how to get the most out of themselves. They weren't naturally the most gifted. And I think I definitely fit that mold. I failed at every other sport before I got to rowing. And so I think having that background helped me have the creativity and the desire to kind of like wring out every possibility as a coach from the training and from the athletes, but then also having some success along the way. You know, getting to win that national championship, getting to be on the national team, getting to study and row at a school like Princeton, all also instilled in me what it's like to be in those really elite, high pressure environments, and how to still be successful in them. So I actually think I have that combination. Really has been really important to me.
Yeah. And you know, to be fair to you, that's not being self-deprecating by any means. I think that's just being honest.
Yeah.
You know, and being objective of your situation, and transcending and including the things that created that success, and building that into your practice as a coach. So that, I think that's awesome that you have that level of awareness to then approach who you are next.
Yeah.
From that perspective. How much work on you did you have to do to come to that realization? Because as you're like in it and going through it, I can only imagine that that's not the perception that you had.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. I think particularly being a head coach really it just kind of lays you bare in a way that I didn't expect.
Ooh, tell me more. What's that mean?
Yeah, I think so much of being a head coach comes down in a lot of ways to so much about the person and who that coach is and what's important to them, and how they want to build the team. And in a way where I don't really like being the center of attention. I don't really like, you know, everybody looking at me. As an assistant coach, I was great at like, yes, I support the program. I support the mission. I support the head coach. Like, I got that. And then I'm in charge, and it's like, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, let's think about this. And it's like, no. Like, there's nobody else here. What are you going to do? Right. I'm like, this is really hard. Right. So that's probably also how I learned leadership, is like, at some point you just have to start answering questions. Right. And you give it your best shot, and you just keep going. But you have to really know yourself and what's important to yourself, and things like, you know, as a coach, as I was building the team and building the program that I was with, we had some really tough decisions to make about things like, how do you prioritize the long-term development of the team versus the short-term hit of maybe a great recruit that could come in and they could get them next year. But I don't like them. I think they're going to be bad for team culture. I think they're going to be a problem. Is it worth the risk? And as a coach, you have to really decide like what it really is that you value, and put the rubber to the road, and say no to that recruit, as we did. And so you can think about the long term.
I'm going to cut you off on purpose.
Yeah.
So I'm so curious. Is there like a tell or a giveaway that's like, man, this kid looks great on paper, but they're not for us? Because as you're telling the story, I know there's a recruit in your mind. Tell me the story.
It's so, I will say in this case, I think it was two things. It was feel, right? It was at that point in my career, I had just talked to enough.
Where were you at?
At BU.
Okay.
And so this is like, I'm building my team. And I think I was always a very discerning recruiter, and you're discerning in a different way when it's like, these people are all now a reflection of me individually. Right. And so you really think about like, is this what my team looks like? And, at that point I had talked to enough 17-year-olds to know like how they're going to pan out. And there's some people where you're like, well, they might be a really strong athlete or they might just be fine, but we don't know which way it's going to go. But very rarely did I have kids where I thought like, she's going to be a behavioral problem on the team, and I'm worried she's going to bring people down with her. And I could just tell in the conversations, right? The selfishness and the self-centeredness of those conversations in a sport, as we've just been talking about, that is so much about the team.
Yeah.
Every team is, for sure. And rowing is in a whole different way, where you really have to be willing to just be a part of the whole. And willing to become that, to play that part. And, so it's a feel. Like the first is the gut feel. And then the second piece was knowing who you recruit, what kind of team you're recruiting to as well. I mean, in this case, like a school like BU, every school, it requires a certain kind of kid that's going to excel there, right? And as I started to figure out who that was at BU, I could start to recruit for it better. And if somebody's coming to BU and wasn't that into academics and didn't have a big, hadn't shown a lot of commitment to their academics in high school, didn't have some big academic goals in the future for them, like this just wasn't going to work for them. It didn't matter how fast they were at rowing, they weren't going to cut it on campus. And not only that, but they weren't, even if they did like kind of scrape by, they weren't going to lift up the people around them. They were just going to drag them down. And we were at a place where the team was so lean in numbers that I knew every person there needed to be able to contribute positively. And if it wasn't as much athletically, it definitely needed to be culturally. And so it was hard to start to build the confidence to know when to walk away from people, but knowing that, and I found this in business as well, this has served me very well with clients too, is like, you got to know when to say no. And that takes, I think you can only learn that through the fire of actually doing it. There's ways to accelerate that, but you got to do it.
Tell me about the client that you walked away from.
Yeah, I think so. Similarly, like now I know who I best work with. I know who I can relate with the best, who I bring the best out of, who shows up ready to receive that and do that work with me. And this was certainly trial and error, right? And I didn't know that in the beginning. You got to figure that out. Right? And you're like, yeah, we'll figure this out together.
I can help anybody lead better. No, you can't.
Right.
And if you could, that doesn't mean it's a good idea.
Right. Do you want to? Just because you can, do you want to? Right. And I'm sure we've all had that situation where there's like somebody on the calendar and you're just like, oh man, like, right. I'm just not looking forward to this. And so what I started to do was really think about who are the clients on my calendar that I'm like, yeah, I'm fired up for this call again. And to think about what the commonalities were in those people. And this was ultimately how I ended up really deciding to focus in on working with former athletes, is because I saw that was where it was coming up again and again, was that like, yeah, we have that shared understanding that when I say something, when I make a sports reference, they get it because they lived it. Right. And I've worked with a lot of other clients who don't have that background, and sometimes it's great, but it takes those extra steps to build that rapport and build that connection, that understanding. And sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not. And so in any case, yeah, I think having gone through all of that, then when the client comes up, you're like, well, maybe. And then I get to start to think like, okay, they're going to be on my calendar, every week or every other week for the next 6 months. How am I going to feel about that? And if I don't feel like awesome about that, and also certain that at the end of those 6 months, they're going to be where they want to be and that I help them get there, if I'm not certain of that, then I walk away, because my responsibility is to help everybody that I come across. And if I'm not the best person to help them do that, I view it as my responsibility to tell them that. And maybe if I can, to try to help them, like I'll refer them out to somebody I think, hey, this person might actually be a better fit. And I've done that before.
Yeah.
But, I think like recruiting, I always told my recruits, like, my job is to help you find the best school to row at and to build the best team that I can. And the best team that I can build is one that's full of people who are fired up to be here.
Yep.
And if that's not going to be you, I'm going to tell you that. And I'll do what I can to help you find somewhere else. But my job isn't to get every person that I recruit on the roster. I think similarly, my job now is not to get every person that I talk to be my client. It's to get the right people who I know I can help to be my client.
100%. Who you're going to spend all that time with really, really matters. And that's how I position it when we're talking to our clients. We're going to spend some time together. We're going to go deep. We're going to solve some problems.
We're going to talk about some stuff.
We're going to make some shit happen.
Yeah.
And there's only so much bandwidth and capacity you can commit to that effort.
Yeah.
And I don't know the ins and outs of your practice, but Joanna and I made the commitment that we're not going to serve a shit ton of people.
Yeah.
At that level.
Yeah.
So curating that experience and keeping that load small but deep was like priority numero uno. Yeah. And what was really interesting about making that decision is there was a delta between who I am as a coach now and who I needed to become to facilitate that in a way that I was also able to build a business and a life around it.
Yep.
And let me try this on and see how it fits. When you look at most coaches, I'll speak for me. I look at most coaches and what they put out there in the zeitgeist. There's always goal first. Right. And then on the other side of that goal is the identity that is facilitated by getting, like, I don't know, the 6-pack abs or more money in the bank account or whatever. But the person I'm talking to right here, right now, doesn't possess the skills, the beliefs, the patterns, the rituals to get the 6-pack abs. Therefore, the identity is unachievable.
Yeah.
Right. However, the way we do it, we put the identity in front of the goal and start installing, reconditioning the patterns, the beliefs, the behaviors, the habits, and then the goal becomes a byproduct of the identity, not the other way around.
Yeah.
And that has been in practice and apps a tremendous game changer in how reliably we're able to help our clients achieve whatever it is they're looking for.
Yeah. No, spot on. Like that is it. Yes. And exactly how I go about it and why I think that this athlete mindset and background is so helpful in becoming the kind of leader that you want to be, but leading the kind of life that you want to lead. Because, I think as an athlete, you inherently understand, okay, let's say your goal is to win the national championship. It's September. You want to win the national championship in June. The way that you go about that isn't just say you're a national champion or talk about it all the time, right? It's to do the actions that a national champion would do. Right? That's what I talked about as a coach. Okay, if this is our goal, we're going to behave like a champion now. And I remember we had a good meeting. We had a really great team meeting where I was like, I'm not sure this is going to go. And it was like, okay, our goal is to win the conference championship, get qualified for the national championship for the first time in a while. We are not champions right now in this room. None of you are champions. But to become champions, you need to act right now like you already are.
Yes.
You need to think about, how does a champion fuel themselves before practice? right?
Mhm.
Do they just like grab a bar on the way out the door? Do they not eat anything? Or do they make some overnight oats the night before? Right? How do they, does the champion hang out for 10 minutes afterwards and do their mobility routine, or do they just book it out the door to get to class? Right? Does the champion go to bed at 10 o'clock, or do they stay up late because they put off their homework and now they got to pull an all-nighter?
Mhm.
How do you live as a champion before you're the champion so you can do it?
Right.
And exactly the same thing in the way that I coach now. So I developed the performance evolution framework, which is what I use with all of my clients.
Mhm.
And the first step is all internal. It's figuring out what are your non-negotiable habits that you have to do every day to feel like that day was a win. What are your most important tasks that you have to achieve each day or each week to keep moving you forward? How do you need to structure your time so that you can shut the laptop at 5:15 and go and be with your family, or go train for the high rocks or whatever it is that you're going to do, right?
Mhm.
How do you put those pieces in place and start to behave and act like you're living the life that you want to live, so that you can then go and achieve those goals? But until the small boring parts are in place, until you're waking up at the same time every day that you want to wake up, and what I'm working on right now is like, wake up at the same time you want to wake up at every day and drink a big old
Mhm.
glass of water. Just like do that, right?
Yep.
Then the it's already a win. This is making your bed in the morning, right? And so I
Mhm.
work on those little pieces first, as you said, so that then you can be the kind of person who has the six pack abs, who got
Yeah.
the promotion, who
Mhm.
won the national championship.
Yeah. If it's not spilling the tea, walk me through the framework.
Yeah, absolutely. So stage one is it is all internal. So we do a lot of values work. We make sure that each person I'm working with really understands themselves first and foremost, and is establishing, a daily routine that allows them to set up the structure, and the life that allows them to build the framework of the structure for the life that they want to get to.
Mhm.
Uh, and that, I find the values work to be really fascinating, because often the people that I'm working with have done this before, right?
Mhm.
They have already done values work, but we try to come at it a little bit of a different way. And then in the second stage, which is the execution stage, we're looking at, okay, how do we take this knowledge now and apply it to action? Right?
Mhm.
First it's internal, now it's execution. We take the values work, and how does that inform how you lead? How does that inform what decisions you make around your time outside of the office, and what it is that you give your time and energy to, and how can you conserve your time and energy so that it's going to actually where you want it to, instead of leaking out throughout the day.
Right.
Right. And then, so that's about where you are now, and really feeling like you're crushing that there. And then the third stage is long game. And that's when we take all those pieces together, the internal understanding, the execution, and now we're looking at, okay, how are we building a life long term that you're going to feel great about? Whether it's in the career that you're in right now, how are you set up to be able to progress through that? If you're making sometimes people I'm working with come to realize, like, maybe I don't want to be doing the thing that I'm doing right now. So we start to look at, okay, well, what would be in alignment with everything that we've done already?
Mhm.
And how can you do this sustainably,
Yep.
and do this without burning out, and do this in a way that allows you to show up for yourself, for the work that you care about, for the people that you care about, so that at the end of our time together, because I know different coaches have different approaches. My approach is that I, like a rowing coach, like,
Mhm.
I coach you and then I send you off to the water on the water, and you got to go race by yourself. Like, my goal is to give the people I work with the foundation and the structure and the systems and the mindsets to be able to achieve success on their own, so that they don't need me forever. Right. That's how I feel like it's a success, is when they can go and they have the certainty of themselves and
Mhm.
confidence in themselves and the knowledge of themselves, that they can go and carry this forward.
Right. Right. I love that philosophy. You've really done it as a coach when your athletes, your clients are out there thriving in the world. beyond you,
Right.
right? And that's not to say I've had so many clients that I've worked with beyond our initial commitment, and I've had those that went and found other coaches beyond that, and then came back around for whatever they needed us for next,
Yeah.
you know, and just leaving the door open for that relationship to continue to mature and check in. I had dinner with a mentor of a mentee of mine that I worked with for a couple of years. Uh, Shoot, I haven't seen him in 6 or 7, you know, and to see where he's at now and thriving, and uh, in a healthy relationship and taking care of himself and doing all the things, and promotion on promotion on promotion, and stepping into this place of self advocacy, and like all of these things that were not natural behaviors once upon a time. It's just like,
Yeah.
dude, you're doing it.
Yeah. And isn't that so
Yes.
great to see?
It's the
Right?
best.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think I love that, and the idea that life circumstances change, right?
Mhm.
And so you may, and I've seen this before with people I've worked with, uh and then they're in a new role, or they want a new role, or something shifted in their life. They're like, actually, we got to come back, right?
Mhm.
And we got to do this again. Or I need a little bit more support. I've had quite a few clients as well that we kind of go through this 6-month intensive, and then it's like, okay, I'm feeling like I'm in a good place, but I got to stay on track, right? And I think
Mhm.
having that self-awareness of like, look, I need to see you once a month. Like, let's just
Mhm.
check in once a month.
Yeah.
And I view that as a win, because if you're saying like, yeah, I want to keep this going so that I know I do better when I have that accountability. I
Yeah.
do better when I have that accountability, right? We all do.
Yeah.
And so to see that and recognize that, like, here's what I need, and to be able to ask for it, is, I think, a really powerful indication that somebody knows themselves and is doing the work and knows what they need to succeed and knows how to get it.
Yeah. How often are you working with a coach?
I'm in a group coaching program right now,
Yeah.
actually, that I've
Mhm.
been doing for, well, it was one-on-one, and then it was a group that I've been doing
Let
for.
me let me let me ask a better question,
Yeah.
'cause I don't wanna feel like that was a gotcha.
Yeah.
Uh, ho What does your practice of personal development look like? That's a better
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So coaching, yes. Like,
Okay.
I think that coaching I do take coaching. Um, and not, and I think not exclusively, or not all the time. Like, I do think, much like my own coaching, like, I don't want a coach that I'm gonna see every week forever. Um,
Mhm.
and so what I am committed to is always be learning, either or both, more about myself
Mhm.
and or more skills.
Yeah.
And those things are never as separate as they sounded just when I said that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Kind
Right.
of overlap. But I like to think that I'm always actively engaged in some sort of structured pursuit of that. And
Mhm.
so what's group coaching? I just finished a mental performance mastery coaching program to really, really dive into like the mental performance side of things, to be able to pull that
Mhm.
into what I'm doing now. And I'm currently evaluating another additional coach training program to do for my next year. So, like, at the start of each year, I like to think about, okay, so next year,
Mhm.
what's my development plan for the year, and
Right.
making sure that I have that commitment. Because I also think, if, as coaches, we're going to say to others that this is important, and this is
Mhm.
integral, and this will help accelerate your ability to lead and live the way that you want to be. We got to walk the walk too,
Yeah.
right?
Dude,
Um,
100%.
and one of my core values is growth, and I'm just really fortunate that now I get to do a job where I view it as a requirement of the job, is
Yeah.
to keep learning,
All day
um,
long.
and I love that.
Mhm. Yeah, I often say to my clients, yeah, so the evolution of our group, the Leaders Forum, we've had a core group in there that have been with me since the beginning. They started out as gym clients, and now we're in this evolution of next level alignment coaching. And uh one of them, as we're moving through this process of deep work, like you can see like this look of just like sheer curiosity.
Mhm.
And this is like big for me in coaching from that vulnerability perspective. Like, oh, it's probably a good idea that I explicitly let you guys know that I'm also doing the work that I'm desire or require of you guys, right? And she was like, "So who works on you?" You know?
Yeah.
It's like, look, I didn't just like cruise by the library on the way to this group, and then I'm like,
Right,
"Oh, here's the latest thing I learned 5 minutes ago." Like, no, 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 that's not what this is all about. But,
right.
to your point, it's like I don't trust a coach that doesn't have a coach,
Yep.
you
Yeah, and you
know?
gotta live it yourself, right? If
Mhm.
I'm gonna introduce an exercise or a tool or an
Mhm.
approach, mindset, whatever, to people that I'm working with,
Yeah.
I wanna know that it works because I've done it, right? Not
Yeah.
'cause like, "That seems good," right? Or, "I heard
Right,
from
right.
this person that it worked," right? I
Mhm.
wanna know that, like, I know that it works, I know how it works, I know what the process is gonna be like because
Mhm.
I've done it myself.
Yeah,
Uh, I think is so critical.
absolutely. It's I love the fact that you are simultaneously on this journey as both the hero of your journey as you are the guide for others.
And that's the role that I like. That's great. I love that. When
Yeah.
you sit back, like I always used to think about this as a rowing coach, and I think it applies here now that like my job is to
Mhm.
trim the bonsai tree. Like my job is just to be here and give you a little or like a little nudge back onto the road, you know?
Uh-huh.
It's like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna dig it up and start from the foundation again. I'm just here to kind of like help you tap along your way and then like step back, right? Is
Yeah.
be that guide. But
Mhm.
you're gonna be the first one across the line.
Yeah. Oh, man. Was there a moment in your career in this phase of coaching for you where you found yourself habitually or creating a pattern of being too involved? Like, from
Mhm.
like a perspective of like you're too invested in the success of your client. And like you want like was there a learning curve for you to not want it more than they do?
Mm, you know, no, to be honest, and I
Mhm.
think because I through the years of being a sports coach,
Mhm.
I had to really learn and live to be detached from the outcome and from the results
Mhm.
on an individual scale,
Right.
not from the team. But
Mhm.
if there was, a kid who had been having a really tough time and had a chance to like have a big PR, make a big move. And, I just learned that I can't want it more than them. I can't be more invested in it than them. And that
Mhm.
my role is to be the even keel in all of
Yep.
this. And so I think coming back to that idea of being really thoughtful about who you work with,
Mhm.
I always want to be really thoughtful that like I'm not gonna want it more than you. I can want it
Mhm.
just as much as you, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't want it more than me, then we're not the ones to work together. My job is not to provide motivation or to push you somewhere that you aren't willing to go already. My job
Mhm.
is to help my clients realize what it is that they want. And so no, and of course, like of course I get invested, and I
Yeah.
have I have a client right now who is waiting to hear back about a really big licensing exam that they went through and we've been working through for like a while. And I'm like, is it here yet? Is it here? Like I'm only human, right? I'm pumped
Right.
up about that stuff. But I think it's also really critical to be able to hold some of that at a distance because also I need to show up when those things don't happen.
Yeah.
And so I can't have outsized disappointment. My job has to then to be the even presence
Oh,
for them.
that's big.
Yeah.
Oh, man. What happens when it doesn't happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. You know, I've never heard somebody say that out loud in terms of like it's so obvious and like almost programmed at this point. Like, of course, I can't want it more than them, but the rationale behind the dark side of that coin is if your disappointment is bigger, because you like to your point, being detached from the outcome. If it doesn't happen, if they don't get if they shoot their shot and miss in whatever fashion that looks like, if you're more hurt, more disappointed than they are you really able to show up as the coach you need to be for them in that moment?
Right. Right. And I think comes from a
Wow.
background in sports.
Yeah.
So the way it works in rowing is the coach just waits on shore for their boat to race, right? You just launch them and then you wait.
Yeah.
You just watch the race like mom and dad do.
Uh-huh.
And it's awful. It's awful. But I think
is it pop gun, you stay at the start and wait for them to come back, or are you like hauling ass down to the finish line? Like, what is it?
No, I mean, the race is it's over a mile long. So you're not following along. You're typically waiting at the finish line.
Okay.
And hopefully there's a live stream you can follow.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been doing it long enough that in the beginning there wasn't a live stream, and then there was.
Right.
But I've had to meet many crews back at the dock after a loss. And one of my coaching rules was you should always, as the coach, you should always meet your crew back at the dock when they come back after a race.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be on the dock for them if they lose. Mm-hmm. If they win, you want to be there, you want to celebrate, but they can get it. They don't need you. Right.
Right.
But if they lose, I knew that every crew of mine that lost, when they came back to the dock, I would be the first person that they saw on that dock. Yeah. Because I needed them to know that we were in it together, that I was here for them, and that we were going to get through it. And if there were still more races to go, I was right in there with them to figure it out. And if there wasn't, I'd give the seniors a hug while they cried, but I was gonna be there. And if I was on the dock crying, right, or if I was on the dock throwing a fit, what does that do for them? Absolutely nothing. I needed to be the steady, the constant, the one who they knew was going to be there for them. Yeah. Come hell or high water. And it didn't mean that they couldn't know that I was disappointed. Right. I was sad. I think they needed to know that. I'm not a robot, but they needed to know that it was going to be okay. Yes. And the same thing with clients. They need to know that. I just had a client email me. We'd been working through, she was going through a really tough situation with her boss at work. We'd been working through it, and she just got an email that it is not working out with the boss and that there's going to be a separation. Yeah. And my role in there is to say, I'm here. I'm with you. We're going to figure it out. Yeah. Let's talk about where we go now. Right. It's not to wallow in it with her. I feel horrible. Yeah. Right. Of course I do. And my role is not to be the friend who's like, oh my God, can you believe this? Right. What an a-hole. My job is to be the coach. Yes. Right. Yes, 100%. Like, you came to me to help you be your best, and I'm going to help you be the best when it's the hardest, when it's the most challenging to be your best. Anybody can be there for you when you get the promotion. Right. Yeah. Madeline, I think everybody out there would be lucky to coach with you. And where can the audience find you and learn more about MDT Leadership? Yeah, my website, MDT Lead, has all my information on there, and I try to post pretty regularly on LinkedIn. So you can find me at Madeline Davis Tully on there. I'm getting a Substack up off the ground, so if you want to get it on that, you can find me under my name there as well. That's what's up. Cool. Madeline, so grateful for you. I appreciate you.
Thanks for making the time today. If you're
Absolutely.
out there and you're looking to be the fittest leader possible, it starts with integrity, courage, and ownership. But all of that is built on the foundation of alignment first. We'll see you guys next time.